When a sitting president stands before a nation and says, "I am a statesman, I will not go for a third term," it is not a kind of statement that simply comes and goes. It is not the sort of political comment people hear today and forget tomorrow. Whether you support him or oppose him, whether you agree with his policies or disagree with them entirely, a statement like that naturally forces people to stop and think. You see, power has a very interesting nature. Throughout history, power has rarely been associated with limitation. More often than not, power seeks continuity. It seeks expansion. It seeks reasons to remain relevant and influential for as long as possible. That is why whenever a leader who still occupies the highest office in the land begins talking about limits rather than extensions, about departure rather than continuation, the conversation immediately becomes bigger than politics. And perhaps that is the first question worth asking. What does it mean when someone who still holds authority starts speaking about where that authority should end? And maybe, even more importantly, what does it tell us about the kind of political culture we are trying to build? These are not small questions at all. They go far beyond any individual politician. They touch on the very nature of leadership itself. For some Ghanaians, President John Dramani Mahama's declaration, it's reassuring. It reinforces confidence in Ghana's democratic tradition. It signals respect for constitutional order. It reminds citizens that leadership has boundaries and that no office holder, regardless of popularity or achievement, should be seen as bigger than the constitutional framework of the nation. But not everyone says it that way. There are others who might look at the statement and wonder whether stepping away from the possibility of continuation is the best decision. They may point to projects that are still ongoing. They may point to reforms that are yet to be fully completed. They may argue that if a leader still enjoys public confidence and political momentum, then continuity could be beneficial for the country. And honestly, that argument is not entirely unreasonable. You see, throughout the world, people often associate stability with continuity. They believe that experience matters. They believe that leaders who understand the system and have already built relationships within the government are better positioned to complete long-term objectives. From that perspective, the desire for continuity is understandable. Yet, this is where the conversation becomes deeper. Deeper because leadership is not only about what can be done, it is also about what should be done. There is a difference between possibility and principle. Something can be politically achievable and yet still raise important questions about the values that guide a democracy. That is why President Mahama's statement cannot be viewed in isolation. To fully appreciate its significance, we have to place it within a broader African context. Across Africa, presidential term limits have often become some of the most contentious political issues in modern history. In several countries, debates over constitutional amendments have dominated national conversations. Leaders have argued that continuity is necessary for stability, economic development, national security, or the completion of important reforms. In countries like Uganda, Rwanda, Cameroon, and Republic of the Congo, Chad, and Guinea, discussions surrounding presidential tenure have shaped political discourse for years. Supporters of extended leadership often make a simple argument. If a leader is delivering results, why force change? Why interrupt progress? Or why replace experience with uncertainty? Those questions resonate with many citizens because they emerge from real concerns about governance and development. Some critics often respond with a different set of questions. What happens when institutions become dependent on one individual? What happens when constitutions begin to bend around personalities rather than principles? What happens when a political system gradually loses the ability to imagine leadership beyond a single figure? These concerns are equally legitimate. And this is why Ghana's democratic experience stands out on the continent. Ghana has built a reputation not because it is perfect, but because it has largely respected constitutional succession. Governments have changed through elections. Presidents have completed their terms and left office. Political rivals have transferred power peacefully. The country has demonstrated again and again. They have demonstrated that leadership transitions do not have to threaten national stability. Of course, Ghana has its own challenges. No democracy is without flaw. Economic difficulties, political disagreements, and governance concerns remain part of the national conversation. But despite these challenges, the country has generally maintained a culture where constitutional limits are respected rather than contested. We have maintained that status quo. And perhaps that is what makes this particular statement very significant. Because when a certain president declares that he will not seek a third term, he is not simply making a personal announcement. Whether intentionally or not, he is reinforcing a democratic norm. He is reminding citizens that political authority should have boundaries. He is sending a message that institutions matter more than individuals. This is where the word statesman becomes especially important. What exactly is a statesman? It's a question we may want to ask ourselves. A politician will ask, how long can I stay? But a statesman will ask, what happens after I leave? You see, a politician may focus on winning the next election. A statesman thinks about the next generation. A politician measures success by the power accumulated. A statesman measures success by the systems that survive after that power is gone. And when viewed through that lens, President Mahama's statement takes on a broader meaning. It becomes less about one man and more about a philosophy of leadership. Because if we are being honest, power rarely limits itself voluntarily. History teaches us that power often finds reasons to continue. It points to unfinished projects. It points to public support. It points to national interest. It points to stability. In many cases, these arguments are not entirely wrong, but they do reveal something important about the nature of power. It almost always seeks justification for its own continuation. Restraint, on the other hand, is much harder. Restraint requires discipline. It requires perspective. It requires a recognition that leadership is not merely about holding office, but also about knowing where the boundaries of office should be. And maybe that is the bigger and deeper lesson hidden within the statement made by the president. Not whether one opposes him, not whether one supports, not whether one believes his administration has succeeded or failed, but whether Ghana continues to build a political culture where institutions remain bigger. So perhaps the real significance of President Mahama's statement is not what it means for the next election cycle. Perhaps it is not even about the future of one political party. Perhaps its greatest significance lies in the reflection it forces upon the nation itself. What kind of political system do we want? One that depends on individuals, or one that depends on institutions? One that revolves around personalities, or one that revolves around principles? Because in the end, leadership is not simply about occupying office. It is about shaping the culture of power itself. And sometimes the most important thing a leader can do is not to explain how long he intends to stay, but to demonstrate that no individual should become larger than the democratic system that made his leadership possible in the first place. This is David 360. Thank you for staying with me. I'll see you in my next video. Until I come your way again, have a great day and God bless you.